right, well, here with us now to tackle another important aspect of this race, how each candidate is attempting to appeal to Black voters, particularly Black men. I'd like to welcome in Democratic strategist and former advisor to Presidents Clinton and Obama, Dr. Susan Johnson Cook, and Republican strategist Melik Abdul. Thank you both so much for your time on this. Melik, I'd like to start with you. We do see this push by the Trump campaign for Black and Latino voters, but particularly for Black men. And we are seeing some movement. What do you think that's attributed to?
I think it's a more so an understanding from the Trump team and Donald Trump himself, who has been more of a populist style Republican. It is not just focused on those issues like the cultural issues, which are really important, but those things typically help Democrats in elections. Donald Trump is talking about dollars and cents. And I think those type of things that he's leaning into, his response to the issue of immigration, while some people actually believe Donald Trump is going too far, when you listen to people in the community talk about the issue of immigration, what Donald Trump taps into is a sentiment that is being shared in our communities. And so I think that he's going to continue to do those type of things. But remember, Donald Trump was also president of the United States. So while I would hope that Donald Trump would use more of his arsenal to talk about the things that he's done to appeal to all communities while he was president of the United States, I am encouraged by where the campaign has been focused, specifically someone that I criticized early on, J.D. Vance.
You know, and Dr. Johnson Cook, same question for you here, because we were talking about a white man versus a woman of color, a woman whose father is Black, she is half Black. But why do you think there is this seemingly growing support for the former president, especially from some Black men? And is the Harris campaign making the right moves to try to combat it?
So let me just say, as a mother, first of all, of two adult Black men and their networks, and someone who is in the mix, I was with faith leaders, Black male faith leaders, on Friday in Pennsylvania, the battleground state, and surrounded by young men and intergenerational men. And then on Saturday was in Harlem, New York, with the D9, all of the sororities and fraternities, which included many Black men. They stood and they said, look, you know, many are saying that she's not reaching Black men. We're here to declare and to deny that we are Black men and we are for her and with her, and all of our networks are with her as well. So I think she's just going to need to stay on her message and not just look to the left or the right or be deterred by what people are saying in the press and in the works, because the people that are on the ground, working class, professional class, Black men, are with her. And they're saying it openly, undeniably, and unashamedly. And so I think she just needs to stay on message, particularly with reproductive rights, because they all have mothers and sisters, particularly on the economy. Working with business owners is something that I really push and urge her to continue to do, because I'm the chair of the Global Black Women's Chamber of Commerce, and Black women business owners are the fastest growing and producing in the United States of America. So if she stays on message, Black men who are part of the lives of the Black women that I speak about are with her, and I've heard it repeatedly.
I do want to talk more about her support among women. Hopefully we'll get to that. But first, Melik, this question now for you. We are seeing both sides ramping things up. The former president ramping up his attacks, his focus on fear. And the VP is not mincing words and is calling him out directly, forcefully. I'd like to listen to a bit of that.
If Kamala gets 4 more years, the entire country will be turned into a migrant camp, and that's what's happening. When I win on November 5th, the migrant invasion ends and the restoration of our country begins.
Donald Trump cares more about scaring people, creating fear, running on a problem, instead of what real leaders do, which is to participate in fixing problems.
All right, so Melik, this question, and this is for both of you, but Melik, I'll start with you. Are both campaigns kind of running on the same platform, so to speak, which is the platform of fear? One is focusing on the fear of losing our country, the other on the fear of re-electing Donald Trump.
Of course. Think about what happened in 2008 in the election, the race between Barack Obama and John McCain. There were people like the late John Lewis who compared that election, John McCain and Sarah Palin, to George Wallace standing in the schoolhouse door. Think of what Barack Obama and many Democrats, the conversation that was had about Donald Trump in 2016 and 2020. People were saying that Donald Trump was responsible for the number of COVID deaths in the country. So fear and loathing, this is just how our politics is run. It's an unfortunate thing, but I suspect that there will be no glory days or bringing us together or unity heading up to this election. But what they shouldn't do, though, is to continue to push this notion that somehow Black men are responsible if Kamala Harris happens to lose, because we, behind Black women, are the largest voting demographic for Democrats. So Barack Obama can stop lecturing and scolding and admonishing Black men on what we need to do with our vote, because it speaks to a problem they realize they have with Black men. It's not a figment of our imagination, and Barack Obama knows that.
And Dr. Johnson-Cook, over to you.
Yeah, I would agree that fear is the tactic that both are using, but you can't.
Because we didn't see that necessarily during the DNC. There was a lot of hope, toward the future.
Exactly.
But is the campaign now focusing more on that fear of potentially reelecting Donald Trump?
Yeah, because it's the anti. What do you want to have, this or that? So it's the anti, but you can't just stay focused on fear. You have to come back to the hope and talk about what's the pro. What are you pro? Not just what you're anti, but what are you pro? And that's where we hear your platforms. What the criticism has been from both camps is we don't really understand what they're standing for, how they're going to engage and help the American people, the solutions. And so fear is okay as a tactic and a strategy to enter a conversation, but you must come off of fear and say, this is how I am going to counter that. This is what I can do for America. I am pro-America. This is what I can do for America. And these are the solutions to the problems that I've just offered up.
And Melik, for you, Trump and Harris right now are still deadlocked in the latest national polling. Also, in so many individual state polls, we see them neck and neck. Do you think those poll numbers are accurate, though? Because we know what happened in 2016. People said one thing, they went into the voting booth, and it was a completely different story.
To be honest, none of us know. There could be the closeted Trump voter, or it could be more of what we saw in 2020 when the polls were looking as if that Joe Biden would win, and Joe Biden ultimately won. We'll prognosticate over this until Election Day, but I do think that they're probably not factoring in the amount of support that Donald Trump has, and a large part of that seems to be whether the likely voters go to the polls and support Donald Trump, and that seems to be where he has an advantage, even for Black voters.
All right, and Dr. Johnson-Cook, we'll end with you, and I wanted to talk to you about support among women. I mean, polling does show that the vice president still has more support among women voters. Do you think that's enough to overcome any deficits within other groups?
Without question, but we must not stop. We can't take it for granted. So I'm with win with women, Black women, and I'm in a lot of circles, federal circles, economic circles, diplomatic circles, educators, and every one of them says, I was never polled, so we can't say the accuracy of the polls, but I can tell you that 120,000 Black women with Win with Black Women are on almost every Sunday night, and I know that their monies are coming in. Over $1 billion now has been raised, and I can tell you that the conversations amongst Black women across the board are we're with Kamala, and so we're going to make sure that she gets in. Her sororities, and I'm wearing her sorority color today, even though I'm a Delta, but we're with her, and I think we are the wind beneath her wings. And so nobody's going to stop. Nobody's going to take for granted that we've got this election. November 5th is when we go into the booth and we make the difference. No matter what the polls are saying, no matter what the rhetoric is, we will go in and vote Black men, Black women for Kamala.
Listen, I think maybe the most surprising thing out of this is I'm hearing a Delta saying that she's wearing pink here. That's Dr. Susan Johnson-Cook, Melik Abdul.
Yes.
I thank you both.
All right,
Thanks for
take
having
care.
us.